The dark liquid cascaded down Nina Thompson's hair, saturating her dark blue shirt, as Jessica Whitmore's malicious laughter reverberated throughout the Apex advertising agency in Manhattan. Whoops! I figured you could use some refreshment for those lackluster concepts, the fair-haired supervisor mocked, tossing the empty container onto Nina's workspace. Look here, everyone! The diversity hire getting a cola bath! Yelled Brad Mitchell, the marketing associate, as he recorded everything on his latest iPhone. Beside him, Samantha Chun, the human resources aide, chuckled while rapidly texting on her device. When hiring focuses on numbers rather than ability on wake-up call, Nina remained still, the beverage dripping from her textured hair onto the documents she had carefully assembled for the stakeholder presentation. At 29, she was the sole African-American researcher among a group of entitled colleagues who had marginalized her since she started 6 months prior. You understand what your issue is, Nina? Jessica moved closer, her designer fragrance mixing with the sugary scent of cola. You're unaware of your position. You believe you can join our ranks simply because you possess some minor state university credential. The transparent walled meeting room had transformed into a display of cruelty. Other staff members observed from the shared workspace, some uncomfortable, most indifferent. It was the Friday preceding Labor Day, with the office less populated than normal, ideal timing for deliberate humiliation. Nina inhaled deeply, her dark eyes gleaming with what Jessica mistook for tears. Actually, it was resolve. She calmly retrieved her mobile device, disregarding the continued mockery. Planning to contact your mother or your rideshare boyfriend? Brad taunted, positioning the camera nearer. I assume he resides in the Bronx and commuted by train today. Samantha released a piercing laugh. Gentlemen, you're awful. But it's accurate, correct, Nina? It must be challenging maintaining that professional appearance on an assistant's wages. What these three workplace bullies were unaware of was that Nina Thompson wasn't merely another employee attempting to advance professionally. Her life contained secrets that even her personnel records didn't disclose, connections that surpassed this harmful environment. Continue, Nina stated quietly, composing a brief message on her device. You've just made the most significant choice of your careers. Jessica scowled, momentarily disturbed by Nina's tranquility. What are you discussing? Did the sugar affect your mind? In precisely 15 minutes, Nina checked the subtle luxury timepiece on her wrist, a detail nobody had previously observed. You'll comprehend everything. Brad lowered his device, uncertainty crossing his expression. What 15 minutes? Are you hallucinating? Samantha, consistently the most observant of the group, detected something unusual in Nina's demeanor. There was no terror, no fury, just an unsettling composure of someone who understands exactly what approaches. Then the executive elevator, reserved solely for board members, illuminated on the 42nd level. The doors opened with a gentle chime, and 3 security officers in uniform emerged first, followed by a towering, commanding figure wearing a designer suit that likely exceeded anyone's yearly earnings. Nina, Alexander Sterling's resonant voice sliced through the office, quiet like a blade. Are you all right? If expressions could be lethal, Jessica, Brad, and Samantha would already be deceased. What nobody in that workplace could have anticipated was that they had just violated an irreversible boundary, and the woman they had selected to degrade was about to revolutionize the corporate hierarchy. If you're captivated by this tale of justice and retribution, remember to follow our channel to discover how an ordinary analyst converted her degradation into the most valuable lesson these arrogant individuals would ever receive. Alexander Sterling marched across the workspace, his demeanor shifting from worry to restrained fury upon seeing Nina's condition. Droplets of cola continued falling from her hair, staining the white fabric beneath her navy shirt. Security, he commanded in a cold voice. Remove these 3 individuals from the premises. Immediately. Jessica stepped forward, still attempting to process the circumstances. Pardon me, but who exactly do you think you are? This is our workplace, and Nina is our colleague. Incorrect. Alexander positioned himself defensively next to Nina. This is my workplace. Sterling Enterprises holds the controlling interest in Apex marketing. Brad's phone clattered onto the marble flooring. Samantha's complexion turned pale as she quickly searched online. Sterling Enterprises, chairman and chief executive, Alexander Sterling, net worth $8 billion. That's the consequence of judging individuals by appearance, Nina finally spoke, calmly cleaning her face with a tissue. You never took the trouble to discover my true identity. Nina Thompson. Sterling's narrative had commenced 4 years earlier, when she encountered Alexander at a tech summit at MIT. She was studying on full financial aid. He was delivering a keynote address. What started as a conversation about artificial intelligence evolved into a romance that challenged all social conventions. But why are you employed here? Jessica stammered, her mind struggling to reconcile the woman she had tormented daily with the spouse of one of New York's most influential men. Nina smiled for the first time since the incident. Because I value earning my position, not inheriting it, I intended to demonstrate my capabilities without leveraging the sterling reputation. Throughout the previous 6 months, she had systematically recorded every discrimination incident. Copies of offensive messages, audio recordings of sessions where her concepts were appropriated, surveillance footage showing the unequal treatment, all saved digitally, awaiting the appropriate moment. You assumed I was vulnerable because I'm reserved, Nina continued, her eyes sparkling with determination. You mistook dignity for surrender. Grave error. A gentleman in a charcoal suit stepped from the elevator. Marcus Chen, Sterling Enterprises' chief legal counsel and Nina's closest advisor. I possess comprehensive evidence of psychological harassment, racial bias, and hostile workplace creation, he declared, distributing documents to Jessica, Brad, and Samantha. This is absurd, Brad erupted. They were merely pranks. She never objected. Pranks. Alexander retrieved Brad's device, which continued recording. Like pouring cola on her and labeling it a diversity demonstration? Like assuming she lives in the Bronx and used public transport simply because she's black? Samantha started weeping. I have financial obligations, a household to support. Interesting, Nina remarked dryly. I have a household as well. My mother works in healthcare, my father operated public transportation. They labor their entire lives to provide me with education. And you considered that made me lesser. What the trio was unaware of was that during recent weeks, Nina had discreetly developed a new analytical system that would enhance Apex's productivity by 47%. The initiative was valued in millions and registered exclusively under her name. You have 30 minutes to empty your workstations, Alexander announced. Any retaliation attempts will result in immediate litigation. Jessica, in a final desperate act, addressed the other employees watching in disbelief. Will you permit this? Everyone here understands her character. The silence was overwhelming. Several coworkers looked away embarrassed. Tom Williams from the technology department stepped forward. Actually, Jessica, many of us respect Nina's contributions. You're responsible for this toxic atmosphere. As security approached, Nina collected her computer and personal items. She paused near Jessica and whispered, You know what's paradoxical? I was planning to resign today, but you've just provided me something far superior. The luxury watch on her wrist, a matrimonial present from Alexander, displayed 3:47 p.m. In exactly 13 minutes, a company-wide announcement would be distributed regarding comprehensive changes to the diversity and inclusion protocols. Alex, Nina touched her husband's arm. I want to utilize this for something greater, not merely revenge. He nodded, immediately understanding. The educational fund you intended to establish? Precisely for young African-American individuals in technology, financed through the value of shares these three possessed in the corporation. What these workplace predators had interpreted as weakness was actually the quiet strength of those who collect evidence, await the perfect opportunity, and transform personal injustice into systematic reform. However, the situation wasn't concluded yet. The genuine impact of that Friday afternoon's events was just starting to develop. Apex Marketing's Crisis Management Center went into complete chaos when Marcus Chen began displaying a presentation titled Evidence of Hostile Environment, Thompson versus Apex Marketing, on the main screen in the conference hall. The urgent meeting summoned for all staff promised essential clarifications regarding organizational modifications. No, Jessica screamed, attempting to reach Marcus's computer. You cannot do this. It's privacy violation. Privacy violation, Alexander repeated with an icy smile. Like these messages you transmitted to the entire team? On the display, a communication from Jessica appeared. The new diversity recruit arrived today. I predict she won't survive a month. Anyone interested in wagering how soon she'll return to the slums? Brad grew pale when the following slide revealed screenshots of a messaging group called Elite Apex, where he posted daily photographs of Nina with descriptions like, discovered a missing domestic worker and someone contact her transportation service. How did you obtain this? Samantha gasped, observing her own social media posts appear, including one where she secretly recorded Nina dining alone with the caption, When the quota lacks companions, truth. 6 months, Nina stated calmly, walking to the auditorium's center. For 6 months, you constructed a comprehensive digital record of your own prejudice. Every screenshot, every audio recording, every video. Human Resources possesses copies of everything. The subsequent slide revealed something that made the entire auditorium pause. Project Prometheus, innovative predictive marketing analysis platform, created by Nina Thompson Sterling, estimated worth $47 million, status, legally protected. While you wasted time degrading me, Nina continued, I developed an algorithm that will transform data analysis in marketing. Sterling Enterprises has already acquired exclusive rights. Jessica staggered backward. Sterling Enterprises? But that indicates that every dollar of profit this project produces over the next 20 years will directly fund the Nina Thompson Foundation for African American Youth Technology Scholarships, Alexander added, initially financed by the mandatory sale of shares you three possess in this company. Brad attempted one final desperate strategy. This is blackmail. We'll pursue legal action against you. Marcus Chen adjusted his eyewear. Blackmail involves threats. We're simply presenting documented evidence of hate crimes, psychological harassment, and systematic racial discrimination. Crimes which, coincidentally, carry penalties up to 5 years imprisonment in New York. The next slide displayed the company's hierarchical chart. 3 boxes highlighted in red, Jessica Whitmore, Brad Mitchell, and Samantha Chun, all marked immediate termination for cause. You cannot dismiss us for cause, Jessica shouted, tears of rage streaming down her face. We'll contest this. You may attempt, Nina replied calmly, but I suggest you first review the video Brad graciously recorded today, pouring cola on me while shouting about diversity demonstrations. The video began playing, the sound of Brad himself stating, I assume you live in the Bronx and use the subway today, echoed through the silent auditorium. Several employees lowered their heads, ashamed they had witnessed without intervening. Additionally, Alexander announced, Sterling Enterprises is implementing a new compliance program across all subsidiaries. Any company seeking to maintain contracts with us must undergo rigorous diversity and inclusion assessments. Samantha began sobbing. My career, my reputation, it's all ruined. Her reputation? Nina stared at her. You spent 6 months systematically destroying mine. Now you're experiencing the consequences of your actions. The final slide appeared. Nina Thompson Foundation initial investment, $50 million. Objective, 1,000 complete scholarships in technology for young African American women over 5 years. 50 million! Brad nearly choked. From where? From the discrimination penalties you three will pay, from bonuses that will be revoked, and from my personal contribution, Nina explained. Oh, and every company you attempt to join will receive a complete file on this case. Good fortune explaining in interviews why you were terminated for documented racism. Jessica collapsed to her knees, finally comprehending the extent of destruction. Please, I have bills, a mortgage. Amusing, Nina replied, her voice filled with devastating calm. I had bills too when you sabotaged my projects, stole my ideas, and made me question whether I belonged here. The difference is I transformed my pain into something constructive. You converted your privilege into cruelty? Security guards began escorting the three from the building. On the large screen, one final message appeared. Genuine diversity isn't about quotas. It's about recognizing that talent has no color, class, or postal code. As the auditorium erupted in applause, Nina Thompson Sterling remained center stage, the cola long since dried on her shirt, but her dignity intact and her legacy just beginning. What nobody in that room could have predicted was that this moment represented not just a personal victory, but the birth of a movement that would transform the entire technology industry in coming years, proving that sometimes the greatest revolution begins with one person refusing to accept the place others attempt to assign them. 6 months later, the auditorium of the Metropolitan Opera House in Manhattan was filled for the premiere of the documentary Code Nina: How Corporate Racism Created a Revolution. Nina Thompson. Sterling took the stage to thunderous applause, wearing an elegant black designer suit, not to impress, but because she could now choose what to wear without judgment. When they poured cola on me, she began her speech, her voice echoing through the historic theater. They didn't realize they were nourishing the seed of a change that has now benefited 347 young African American people with complete scholarships in technology. In the audience, cameras focused on emotional faces. Fortune 500 executives, civil rights advocates, and most notably, the first Nina Thompson Foundation scholarship recipients, brilliant young people from marginalized communities now studying at MIT, Stanford, and Harvard. The documentary revealed something shocking. Jessica Whitmore had attempted to sue Nina for defamation and emotional damages, but her own attorneys abandoned the case upon seeing the evidence. Brad Mitchell, after being rejected for 23 job interviews, now worked as an app delivery driver, Ironically, the profession he had so ridiculed. Samantha Chun relocated to a small rural town, deleted all her social media accounts, and, according to sources, spent her days writing apology letters that were never answered. The most ironic thing, Nina continued, is that 3 days before they poured cola on me, I had completed an algorithm that detects patterns of discrimination in corporate environments using artificial intelligence. They literally provided me the final data I needed to validate the system. The Equihire application, developed by Nina, had already been adopted by 1,200 companies globally, generating $180 million in revenue in the first quarter, all profits funding the scholarship program expansion. Microsoft, Google, and Apple formed a historic partnership to implement the system in their hiring practices. Tom Williams, the IT colleague who had defended Nina on that fateful day, was now Chief Technology Officer of Sterling Enterprises' Technology Diversity Division. Seeing Nina transform humiliation into revolution taught me that silence in the face of injustice is complicity, he told the New York Times. The most emotional moment of the evening came when Marcus Thompson, Nina's father, took the stage. The retired bus driver, who worked 40 years to put his daughter through school, held the Nobel Peace Prize trophy that Nina had just received. The first African American person to be honored for innovation in social justice technology. My daughter has always been brilliant, he said, his voice breaking, but they only saw her color. Now the whole world sees her brilliance. On the screen, images of the Apex marketing office appeared. The company had filed for bankruptcy after losing all contracts with Sterling Enterprises and its subsidiaries. The building now housed the Nina Thompson Institute for Technological Equity, where young African American people were developing solutions to combat systemic racism using AI. Jessica Whitmore made one last public appearance on an obscure podcast, attempting to play the victim. I lost everything over a silly joke. The video went viral, not out of sympathy, but as a perfect example of how privilege blinds people to the gravity of their actions. The comments were merciless. You didn't lose everything over a joke, you reaped what you sowed during years of racism. Nina ended her speech with words that would go viral. They asked me if it was revenge. I say it was justice. Revenge destroys, justice builds. I turned every drop of that cola into fuel to change an entire system. Because the greatest revolution isn't taking down those who oppress us, it's building ladders so others don't have to go through what we did. As she stepped off the stage, her phone vibrated. It was a message from a 16-year-old girl in the Bronx. Ms. Sterling, I just got accepted into the scholarship program. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. Thank you for not giving up that day. Nina smiled, remembering her own words that fateful afternoon. You have just made the best decision of your lives. And indeed they had, just not in the way they expected. A year later, the Nina effect became an academic term to describe how exposure to institutional racism can catalyze systemic change. Jessica, Brad, and Samantha became case studies in universities about the consequences of prejudice in the corporate environment. Meanwhile, Nina Thompson Sterling continued her mission to transform every act of injustice into an opportunity for social change. The lesson was crystal clear. In that Manhattan office, 3 people chose the path of hatred and lost everything. One person chose the path of justice and changed the world because, in the end, racism doesn't just destroy its victims, it mainly destroys those who practice it. Have you ever witnessed an injustice that could have been transformed into positive change? Share your story of overcoming adversity in the comments. If this story of justice and transformation touched your heart, consider subscribing for more stories that prove that true revenge is not destroying those who hurt us, but building a world where no one else is hurt in the same way.